Welcome to the podcast that has earned recognition in 2019 and then again in 2020 as one of the very best in the marketing research field. This is Research Business Daily Report. And because we can see you're watching us today, we ask that you please lend your support for our continuing research news videos series. We'll tell you how to at the end of today's report. I'm Bob Lederer, now in my 26th year as the respected voice in market research. We hope you watched this past Tuesday when we presented the latest Procter & Gamble marketing innovation, the Tide Laundromat. It features built-in detergent, fabric softener, and more necessary laundry components so that the Tide Laundromat customer needs only to bring their clothes to clean. Now, we were fortunate to track down and to speak with Rich Kahan, who along with his brother owns this first Tide Laundromat. It's located in the northwest end of the city of Chicago. We spoke to Rich about the evolution of the store, particularly the fact that it was not originally planned to operate in the COVID environment. But what happened to the store's design between March 2020, when COVID hit, and the opening of the location this past December is a fascinating tale.
As a fabric care company, this is near and dear to the company. This is their trophy property, Tide. We're a vendor for Tide cleaners, and when Tide wanted to get into the coin-op laundry business, we were one of the groups, probably the only group they came to have the first discussion, and this is where we ended up. We started this literally filling bottles in one of our stores and giving them to our customers when we were doing the initial marketing study. From the evolution of that, we came into a self-dosing pumping system that I'm not going to get into because it's kind of proprietary. That's our whole business. And we're offering, based on your machine size, a exact calibrated amount of soap, if you use bleach, the bleach, and of the softeners that the engineers have calibrated so that based on machine size, your offering fits what you're putting into the machine. COVID really, it changed the way we had to do things. It changed the way we designed this. This was all done via WebEx and Zoom, so there's no in-person meetings. Everyone was scattered around the country, from East Coast to the Midwest to the West Coast, and so we were literally designed this on the fly. Not knowing for sure how everything would work, because generally when you're doing a design on an existing structure, you go in, you can calibrate, you can do some measurements, to make sure everything worked. We couldn't do that. We had a set of plans and designed everything off the plans. Afterwards, when we could finally go in person, which was probably in July, mid-July, we were able to take other measurements and figure out where we were on or we were off. But pretty much the design came out as planned. And again, we're working through kinks right now in the system because it's a first of its kind system. And ultimately we'll have those all worked out. Nothing major, just minor little things that have to be worked out with the engineers. But COVID actually gave us an opportunity to talk about how we sanitize and how we keep things clean. The company started Tide in I think it was 46, 47. And they've been selling it to the consumers ever since. In the laundromat business, it wasn't a huge, their consumer. Let me back up a second. Their consumer recognition is about 75 to 90%. When you go to the laundromats, it was only about 30%. They wanted to change that. We had to make sure that that the distances, the calibrations, and how everything was going to fit in. So it got a little tenuous for a while, and P&G, they implemented some very strict protocols for their people to come. They, only a couple people would come at a time, independently, without, they had to drive from Cincinnati to Chicago, and it was tough because to design this, it's for a low tech business, this is about as high tech as you can get in the business. And so from that perspective, the company showed us how serious they were by having their people eventually come into Chicago once most of the restrictions were lifted. But we were lucky, we got safe. We really didn't have any issues from COVID, during our entire process, and never really, our project in the construction phase never got shut down.
And from your perspective, things were able to move forward and you followed the guidance of
Fauci. So, that I said to you, it's a personal thing. One of my closest dear boyhood friends is a scientist at the NIH. He works directly under Fauci, was responsible for the research at NIH going up from Moderna into Fauci and ultimately to the White House, into the COVID task force. And we implemented, we have other stores. This is not our first store. So we had 4 other stores at the time. So we, had to implement certain protocols in order to keep our employees safe, ourselves, and as well as our other customers safe. So some people thought some of the things we did were draconian, but we did it to save our lives and our employees' lives and hopefully some of our customers' lives, because we know people were coming in sick. First thing we did was, late March, we implemented, you had to wear a face covering. We tried to do gloves, but that was really not as much, but we were wiping and scrubbing. And, initially, if you remember, they thought that it would transfer through touch, not just airborne. So we didn't know. Early in April, as it was getting worse and worse, we implemented, you can wash and dry, you had to fold at home. Behind that was less time in the store, less people, we could turn over the store more often. And we've always followed, the Fauci guidelines. I mean, I know the science wasn't perfect, but, we look at, like our business, it was an evolving process. They had to learn on the run. And we did the same thing. And you know what? I'm happy we did it. I know it cost us some business, but, we tried to keep everybody in our stores safe as best we could. And some people would comply, others made it very difficult. And some people we had to say thank you for your business, but take it somewhere else.
The store has only been open just about 2 months now. What's the consumer reaction been, good and bad, towards the idea of not having to bring your detergent and your softeners and everything else with you?
Majority are very happy with it. There is an additional cost to it, which they don't understand. And, what people have to realize is that anytime you go into a laundromat, you got to use a machine and you have to put soap, or you got to, soap, and you've got to put in, you want to use your Clorox or your bleach, you have to put that in, and you've got to put your softeners in. And, we would see over time is that people would just pour and pour and pour. The more soap you put in, the cleaner your clothes would get. And it's really not true. And what they didn't seem to understand is by pouring half the bottle in, your cost of your wash went up, exponentially. But they didn't care about that. What they cared about is that we upcharge for the soap. Some people didn't like it. Some people will go elsewhere. But everyone has to realize you're going to use a couple of dollars worth of detergent and softener and bleach every time you go into a store. And the way we have it set up is that it's been formulated based on our machine size to accommodate full loads. So people go in and use the exact amounts of soaps they should use. That was one of the bigger things we had to overcome is, not bringing it in. And people have an image that Tide's expensive. Well, it's expensive for one reason, because it's good. And it's not as expensive because you use less than some of the lesser brands. And so again, it's a re-education of a consumer. But the one thing we do offer is the best of the detergent lines that are available and the best of the softener lines that are available. The way they think, we work with a brilliant group of people, and P&G has outstanding people that are within that organization. And again, I've been humbled that they chose us to do this, because it could have been anybody in the country.
Have you been looking at certain things that you need to see in terms of consumer attitudes, consumer opinions, consumer usage and such?
Yes, we have. And as a matter of fact, part of what we do, how we gauge ourselves is through our comments on Yelp and on Google. The reaction from the consumers have been very positive, very high end in terms of our responses, mostly fives. I think, people will get used to us. Are we more expensive? Yeah, we are more expensive than the guy down the street, but we're much more efficient. Our equipment is the best that's out there. It's nobody has what we have in terms of our ability to do an extraction. When you wash your clothes, it's full of water. And then, depending upon how fast you can spin the water and extract it out, you then have to take that and bring it to a dryer. Well, if you have a lot of water still in your clothes, it extends your dry time. Part of what we do is the extraction of the water is so great that dry times are cut anywhere, I'd say 50 to 60+% to what's normal. And that's what gets people in and out quickly. So, part of what we can offer is a 35-minute wash and dry.
Will it work in only certain neighborhoods, in your opinion, or will it work pretty much anywhere?
Well, it depends on it. That's subjective, and it's really based on, we do our analysis based on demographics, location, demographics, and overall, market to where we want to be. You need to be in a market where consumers there's high multifamily. There's a socioeconomic factor that comes in, but you can also go to very high neighborhoods and you'll find laundromats, but they're not used at the same capacities. These are people who live in, they're apartment dwellers. They have houses with small machines, and you come to our facility and you can take anything from a 2 to a 10 load machine. And, that saves a lot of time. And a lot of the apartment buildings have small machines. We call them the top loaders. Some of them have front loaders, but they're never going, they don't usually bring in more than a 25 to a 30-pound machine, which is which is two to three loads. It's probably the max you'll find in most apartment buildings. So again, it's all a factor of saving time.
That wraps up today's Research Business Daily Report. If you have not been watching us regularly, well, we want you to know the editorial goal of every RBDR is to give you a news insight or commentary that you just won't find anywhere else. And if you watch us with any regularity, you're going to find that to be very true. And as your appreciation for what we are presenting grows, we hope that it will lead you to consider becoming an RBDR Patreon supporter. In other words, to support us on a regular basis. And you can do it at whatever level you're comfortable with by visiting patreon.com/RBDR. Hoping that you have a good research day and that this weekend has been good for you, your business. We're all hoping for a better weather weekend, that's for sure. And whether it is or it's not, we'll be looking for you again here on Monday. So please have a safe weekend.